It's Cannaday from Epic Gaming Night, and this is my top 100 games. This episode we're going through 30 through 21. There's a few games in here that are great games that really got me into the hobby. So I'm super excited to continue to share with you my top 100, and let's get to the list. My number 30 is Race for the Galaxy. I love the simultaneous actions in this game where you're trying to explore or develop or settle, or you're trying to set up your planets so you can get points off of them. There's all sorts of card play and combos in this game, and it's very quick and very fast paced as you're playing the game. It does take a little bit to get into with all the iconography, but it's very rewarding once you know how to play this game and you can just like constantly taking turns over and over again and doing lots of stuff, and it's very rewarding the combos you can build. It's a lot of fun and a great game, and that's why my number 30 is Race for the Galaxy. I've had quite a few head-to-head card games on the list, but for my very favorite one of those, my number 29 is Netrunner. This is an awesome game about being a corporation or being a runner. One player is trying to hack into the corporation and go through all these ice and play down all sorts of icebreakers. It's very thematic in the way it feels in this cyberpunk dystopian future setting where you're doing all these different things as the corporation. You're trying to pass agendas, and I love how you're like lots of pressure luck in this game and trying to like bluff with your opponent and trying to figure out exactly what's going on. A very, very thinky game, very asymmetrical, and there's no other head-to-head card game like it. And that's why my number 29 is Android Netrunner. I'm a huge fan of fantasy, and Lord of the Rings was something I grew up with as a child. When a lot of other kids were running around pretending to be Mario or Power Rangers, me and my friends were running around with sticks pretending to be Frodo and Sam. And that's why my number 28 is Lord of the Rings, the card game. This is an awesome cooperative card game where you get to play different heroes and you're going through all sorts of different encounters and different quests, and you're trying to build your deck with that same CCG feel, but it's completely cooperative. So there's no need to like keep up with a crazy meta or anything like that. It's a great game that you can play with friends or play it solo. And I've had a good experience playing this game on my own and trying to build and tweak decks. And I love the Lord of the Rings theme. So that's why my number 28 is Lord of the Rings, the living card game. My number 27 is a great game from Stonemaier Games, and that is Scythe. This is a game where everybody has a different faction and they're trying to build up and gather resources, and it has a very like 4X feel, but also very Euro-y at the same time, where you're doing all these like sleek mechanisms to try to resource economy, get all the different things and build up your civilization or your little faction. And then there's a great combat system in this that feels very much like the bidding combat from other games that I really enjoy. It's got all sorts of different ways you can get points for victory, and you have to manage your reputation, and there's cool little encounters. There's lots to love about Scythe, and that's why it's my number 27. My number 26 is a first-person shooter, Euro-y thematic game, which is Adrenaline. I love this game because it's got all these cool little plastic miniatures and interesting like resource management of trying to get the correct resources to be able to shoot your weapons, but you're also trying to do like this area control with how much damage you're doing to the other players, trying to make sure you can get first hits so you get off points, and also make sure you have the max on these different characters, trying to min-max where all your stuff is and spreading out your damage, and then you're not worth as many points after you've died. There's lots of great things in Adrenaline. It's a fast-paced, action-packed game that feels very thematic, first-person-y, but also has some cool mechanisms that make it exciting. And that's why my number 26 is Adrenaline. My number 25 is Mechs vs. Minions. This is a great game with programming of actions and completely cooperative. It gives me that Robo-Rally feel, but then it's completely cooperative. You're working together, trying to figure out how to smash as many minions as possible, going through all these different dossiers of all sorts of different quests. This game keeps blowing me away as I keep getting further and further in the quest line and playing through all the different scenarios, and it's lots of fun. I've played this with a bunch of different groups, and it's a blast every single time. The production value on this game is off the charts, but the gameplay is just as good. I'm a really huge fan of what Riot Games has done with Mechs and Minions, and that's why it's my number 25. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, my number 24 is another game in the Lord of the Rings universe, and that is Battle of the Five Armies. This takes the battle from the end of the Hobbit books and makes this crazy, like, epic game of combat also in a quicker time frame than some other games like this, but it's a lot of fun. Like, one person is playing all the goblins and orcs coming in to attack the dwarves and try to take over everything. The other player's playing like the good players who gets to be Bilbo Baggins to try to mitigate damage, and you can try to hold on to the very last second so you can get all your characters into battle and hopefully in the game. It's a lot of fun, very asymmetrical, great mechanics, and a great combat war game in the Lord of the Rings universe, and that's why my number 24 is Battle of the Five Armies. I played a ton of different board games growing up, but the games that really started getting me into the hobby were cooperative games. When I learned about those, it was something that was super exciting for me. And my number 23 is one of the games that got me into the hobby, and that is Arkham Horror. This is a Lovecraftian cooperative game that started like some of this whole Lovecraft craze in board gaming. It's a great game where you're an investigator trying to go around closing gates. You're trying to get clues to close the gates, working together as a team cooperatively so that the great old one doesn't awaken. You're upgrading your character with all sorts of nifty items, but there's always monsters coming in everywhere. You have to try to sneak around them or attack them and face them, and there's all sorts of exciting things. They've come out with tons and tons of expansions for Arkham Horror, which make the game truly epic in scale and scope. If you're looking for a great game that started the whole Lovecraft craze, for me, that is Arkham Horror. I love social deduction games. I've actually had quite a few of them on my list. And my number 22 is my favorite social deduction game of all, and that is Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. One player is playing the forensic scientist, and they get to put out different clues about the murder weapons that the actual murderer has chosen. So each player is going to have different items in front of them that are either clues left behind or the murder weapon, and the murderer's gonna pick in between those of theirs that are in front of them. Then everyone has to try to like throw shade and like figure out what's going on with what the forensic scientist is trying to tell them. There's lots of deduction, also with the whole bluffing and like betrayal-ish sort of feel in this game. I love Deception, Murder Hong Kong, and if you like social deduction at all, this is the best one and you should definitely check it out. And that's why it's my number 22, Deception, Murder at Hong Kong. My number 21 is Shadows over Camelot. This is another great cooperative game, but this one throws in the whole traitor aspect, which is great. It's definitely interesting how this game that has just like card play, like you're trying to do quests with getting these different like suits of cards, but it feels so thematic as you're trying to like fight off catapults and like go make sure to take care of the Picts and Saxons and go fight like the dragon and try to complete all these different quests. And it's tons of fun every single time I play it. And it's a great game for like high player counts, and it works really great. So that's why my number 21 is Shadows over Camelot. Well, we made it through another 10. We're getting to the very top of my favorite games, and these are some games that I love to like rave about. I love theme in game, and when you can take a theme that I love and turn it to a great game with great mechanics, it's just so amazing. So make sure to tune in for the rest of my top 100. We're almost to my top 20, and then next is my top 10. I'm super excited to share with you guys my very favorite games. So until next time, I'll see you on my top 100.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.